the right team beside you to help you move on when the stakes are high and you can't go it alone. Frasier and Griffin bringing justice home.
Welcome back to Conversations with Ralph and Randy of Frasier and Griffin Law Firm. I'm Chisa Penix Brown of Give It to the People, and I get to shock you a little bit today. Let me tell you what we're going to be talking about. So today, we're going to talk about, tasers, all right? This may be a controversial subject matter, right? Don't get scared, guys, okay? Because when people hear this, they know something's about to go down. Now, I personally carry my taser because just in case, I don't have a gun. And not to say that I wouldn't get one because I think that, that it could be good in certain situations. My dad had guns. So I've seen rifles and pistols and, all of that, before. But I've actually, I think I may have shot a gun one time, right? But that's just not my thing, right? I just think you know yourself and you need to stay in the lane that makes sense for you. However, I always go with the concept of if you get run up, you get done up. And that means that you may need to get the taser. So therefore, I want to know, because we had a good conversation and I said, well, what if I did use my taser on somebody? What are the legal ramifications of doing that? And I'm meaning it, of course, in a sense of self-defense, not like I'm trying to go and just do something to somebody, right? Somebody is coming towards me, somebody is threatening me, and therefore I need to use the taser. So legally, can you discuss some of the things that I need to think about if I have a taser or if somebody else out there has a taser?
Well, one of the first things we want to think about is a taser can be concealed, considered a concealed weapon. So if you have it concealed, the officer could charge you with having a concealed weapon if he stops you. But if you have it out, you're allowed to have it out in North Carolina. Okay. And if you have it out, that's fine. Let them know, hey, I have my taser and it's on the seat or wherever it is, but just keep it out. If you have to use it for self-defense, I'd rather see you use your taser than a knife or a gun to shoot someone. And as a female perspective, I would argue, if a guy's trying to attack you or jump on you, other older adults, if younger people are running up on them, they're not fighters, it might not be a bad idea if you have a taser so you can protect yourself and let them know, hey, just get off of me. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I definitely would rather see that. I probably could defend that pretty successfully if you were attacked and you had to use your taser, so it's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm. One thing to keep in mind, though, is that a taser under North Carolina law is still considered a deadly weapon.
Deadly weapon?
It is still considered a deadly weapon. Okay. And so under those circumstances, you could use your taser pretty much in any instance. You could use your gun, but you have to be facing some kind of deadly force. Mm-hmm. So if I'm come up and smack you, you can't tase me.
You sure?
You can.
I heard what you said, but
you can tase me, but you might be in violation of the law by doing it. Okay. Now, can it be defended? Probably. There's probably something we can do to try to help in that situation. But the reality of it is, it technically would be a technical violation of the law because deadly force breeds deadly force. Mm-hmm. And so, if you don't think deadly force or that you're in danger of some kind of deadly force being used on it, technically. Mm-hmm. Using the taser would be improper. Now, I'm not telling you, I tend to agree with Randy that a taser is probably a much better option in certain instances than using a firearm or a knife because those things, quite frankly, are more likely to kill you. A taser is not likely, while it can kill somebody, and we've had instances where officers have used tasers and people have died. Mm-hmm. It's not likely to kill the person, but it is going to get them up off of you and pretty quickly. Yeah. So, I certainly, if I were recommending which version to use, I would say, the taser's probably your best first option. However, keeping in mind that it is technically under the law a deadly weapon and could bring about some kind of charges, quite frankly, if that person is injured or dies.
Because there could be a person may have a heart thing, it could be they've had a stroke. So there could be pre-existing conditions that we don't know that it could then agitate that further. And we were just trying to, hey, back off. But that pre-existing condition could be worsened by that electrical shock.
It certainly could be. Mm-hmm. And that situation could bring about a potential homicide charge or at least some kind of manslaughter charge or something of that nature. Mm-hmm. And the other thing is that, people don't often realize this, just because I don't die right now doesn't mean that I can't be dealt with later. So you tase a person who has a heart condition, it doesn't kill them. It causes them some real severe heart problems, though, that they never fully recover from, and they die next year. You could still potentially be charged for that death because you were or if they could argue that you are the person that brought about the situation that ultimately caused the death.
Okay.
So those are the kind of things that you want to be weary of. But, quite frankly, I think that that's a great first option.
But this is my question. So you can get a license for concealed carry. If it's a gun, can you get a license for concealed carry if it's a taser?
Believe it or not, you cannot. You can carry a firearm, but you can't carry a taser technically concealed.
Now, once I show it to you, because I'm going to shock
Except
you
in
with
your
it,
home.
it's not concealed anymore, but that doesn't count.
Well, you get to arguing about, and so concealed as it relates to me and Randy doesn't matter, or as it relates to some general population person. The only person that being concealed is going to be an issue for is a police officer.
Okay.
Right. And so it's only when the police are around that you necessarily need to be concerned about carrying a concealed taser. As with carrying a concealed firearm, you got to remember that North Carolina is an open carry state. And so there's nothing wrong with me walking down Main Street, Fayetteville Street, or any other street with my firearm on my hip. And there's really nothing anybody can do to me as long as I'm not a felon. So, but no, to answer your question, there's not an exception for the taser.
Okay. But that's a good thing to know, because when you see the police, they have their taser on their hip, they have their gun on their hip. You can clearly see it. So for just general population, it's here, it's on the hip, you can see it. So it's not concealed. And then definitely when I do this, it's not concealed. All right. So
Could I add
So,
one thing
yeah.
to that? One thing I do like to say, I would like to mention, whether it's a taser, a knife, or a gun, or whatever people use, a lot of times when you have altercations, what I've found is the prosecution really looks at the intent. If you have that taser, if you're really using it for self-defense, that's one thing. But if you're involved in a heated conversation or altercation, and you pull that knife or that gun and you shoot someone and it's not justified, then you have problems. And a lot of times when people do feel like that and they are in those situations, they are heated and angry. And so they may shoot or use the gun out of anger and not self-defense. And there lies your problems. And that is one thing that the prosecutors across the state are going to look at. So you have to remember, if you're not level-headed, if you can't make a wise decision, I often tell people, like with the road rage, a lot of people these days seem like they're just angry and mad. I see that a lot. Try to stay in your car. Don't get out. If you're inside your car, somebody's got to not hit you through your window or something to keep your window up, or you could drive off. But when you get out and you start fussing and arguing, and see, if you get out with your gun and you happen to shoot somebody, then that does become a difficult situation to try to figure out, were you defending yourself or were you upset and shooting? So be careful when you go to arm up.
Now, what if a person comes to your window and you're in your car and you're not getting out of your car, and maybe you were using the taser? Would that be because you have physically come to me and I was in my car?
But do you have to use your taser, or could you drive off?
I don't know. It just depends.
Well, that's what the DA is going to be
right?
looking at.
Yeah, it depends, right?
And in North Carolina, you do have a right, you have a right to defend yourself. You don't have to flee. Like if you're in the house and someone comes in your house, you have a right to protect yourself. But, will 12 people in the box think that it's necessarily for you to use your taser or your gun or your knife?
Well, isn't a taser less, and let's just generalize it though. Instead of me hitting you with the car, get a little tase and then you back up and then I can drive off. I mean, I think it definitely matters what the situation
Right, but are you tasing because you're upset? Or are you tasing because you feel like your life's in danger?
Oh, if it was me, it would be because I felt like my life was in danger, because I feel like when you make that effort to physically come over there, and so I know we're talking about like the person that has the taser defending themselves, but what about the person who physically came over to, more than likely, and they were probably upset, which is why they came over, to probably do harm to you?
That's true. And if we can demonstrate that they're
Right.
doing harm, but you also have to remember the prosecutor's going to look at that victim, because once you hit them or if something happens to them, they are the victim. So they're going to have to make the decision, was that necessary force?
Okay.
So the problem and somewhat the beauty of the law is that every fact scenario is different, right? And so all of these situations can arise and you can respond differently and a different result can come about. So in the instant that Randy described, you decide not to tase him, but you drive off, where you hit him with the car, like you said. And now you're charged with assault with a deadly weapon because you hit him with the car. Yep. Now, in your instance, maybe tasing them to back them up off the car would have been better, because some people are going to hold on to your window or try to dive in your car. And then you get into a real gray area about, whether you can drive off and drag this person down the street or whether you. And so every fact scenario is different. And quite frankly, that's kind of what makes our job interesting. Every murder is different, and every scenario is different. Every obtaining property by false pretense is different. And so there's sometimes not a hard and fast answer, right? You sometimes just have to make the best decision under the circumstances. And that's when you need to come see a lawyer to help you navigate through the minutia, to make sure that it's dealt with correctly. Because presented one way, it's assault with a deadly weapon. Presented another way, you were defending yourself and you took the least restrictive cause of that. You took the least restrictive means to separate yourself from the situation. And so that's what you need a mouthpiece for.
No, definitely. And I mean, I think when especially if you talk about women, when they're doing self-defense classes, these are things that they tell you to do to defend yourself. And so if you take any like malicious intent, or being upset out of it, and I'm just scared for my life, I don't want to get hurt, I don't know what this other person has, from that perspective, I think that, but again, it can be either way.
Well, and the answer is, it's going to be your version of what happened. It's going to be that person's version of what happened. And then there's the truth, right? So that's what I tell people. There's three sides to every story. It's your version, his version, and the truth. And typically it's somewhere between the two versions. And so that's, what we do. We try to dig in and find the truth. And, I'll share this too. There are a lot of lawyers out here that don't want the truth. They don't want you to tell them the truth. They would rather not necessarily know all the facts. I'm completely opposite from that. If you don't tell me the truth, then I can't help you, because you haven't given me everything I need to be in a position to help you. I need the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I need to know how to avoid the ugly. And if I don't know the ugly exists, then I might step into the ugly, and ultimately I'm going to go home. My client's going to pay for the fact that I stepped into the ugly, and it's going to be because they didn't tell me.
And that doesn't even discover, like if the other side discovers the ugly and you don't know it, and then they use it against you, and then it just puts you in a terrible situation. Well,
Or I go in presenting a certain scenario, and they're like, "Oh, you're absolutely wrong. Look what happened." Well, if I had known what happened, I would have approached it from a different way.
Yeah. Now, what about a dash cam though? So what if we have a dash cam in the car? Would you advise people to start doing that inside of their cars? And just in case, because road rage is out of control now.
Well, advise them to have a dash cam. If you have a dash cam, it can record and maybe help you with defense. But I tell people, don't go out looking for trouble.
Oh, no.
Try to avoid it.
Yeah.
Try to avoid it. The concealed weapon is a big concern in our community, because it does say it's against the law to conceal it. But a lot of people that I talk to, especially younger guys, they don't really feel that comfortable with having a weapon out in the open when the officer approaches. Most people think, well, my gun's on the dashboard on the seat. Is that really going to be a good scenario for me with the officer coming up? Will he really, be calm, cool, and collected if you see I have a gun in there? And I do understand that, but that is the law.
Yes.
So those are things to think about, and that I would share with people. But if you can stay away, stay away. Going back to what Ralph said about, that's key, what I found about as far as talking. Sometimes people tell your story, just if you be quiet, talk to your lawyer, get the best advice, see what the state has and what they're saying. You know, you don't have to explain everything, and you definitely don't want to go tell the officers something that's a lie. That's really what damages the cases the most. And you can be innocent and still tell them a lie, just scared and not tell them the truth, or tell them the truth and they break it down. So the best thing is to just communicate with a lawyer and let them communicate your story.
Okay. I like that. But I think this is an important thing because people are scared. There are things that are happening, and it does make a difference to know what current laws exist and if there does need to be a law for concealed carry for something like a taser, because it is a real thing that's happening out here. And just being able to make sure that people know what to do. And then can you tell them the number where they need to call?
919-680-4039.
I like the way you say that number. He said it with such confidence. All right. So if you have a problem, then make sure you call that number. And, if you have your taser, like me, nobody's saying don't have it. Make sure that this way people can see it. And just, try to stay out of trouble, because if you can stay out of trouble, you won't even need it. And I have never had to use mine, but I do think that we do have to have some type of protection that's there for us. And, sometimes there's not another person that's around. Sometimes you are by yourself. Sometimes you are getting groceries out there with the kids. You turn your back. There's a lot of scenarios where something like this could be useful, but also stay within the parameters of the law. So thank you guys for watching.
When the stakes are high and you can't go it alone, Frasier and Griffin bringing justice home.